that idea kind of rolls from meeting to meeting. So we're gonna wait just a couple minutes to see people roll in, and so they won't miss it.
Can I try share your screen just to make sure everything's going smoothly?
Okay, yeah.
Can you see that?
Your co-host there. Yep.
I can see the Qualtrics, yep.
Perfect.
All right, we're on YouTube live now. So
Cool.
Just let me know and I'll start the recording.
Okay. Let me just wait one. Sarah, do you have any other questions? Oh, there she is. Sarah, do you put your dog away when you're doing these kinds of things?
It depends, but she's not inside today.
No, okay, gotcha.
I knew it'd only be a few moments.
Yeah. Sarah, you good to go? Okay. Hi, everyone. Welcome to our second Faculty Symposium Series talk for 2021. This is the first year we're doing our Faculty Symposium Series, and we're really excited to share all the great things happening at EKU. My name is Dr. Jonathan Gore. I'm a professor of psychology and also the director of undergraduate research and creative endeavors at EKU. And the purpose of these symposia talks is to highlight the cutting edge research and practices happening at EKU. And we're going to have these presented to the university community and beyond. Today's topic is 21st century innovations. And the presenter will be Dr. Sarah Insera, who's a colleague and a good friend of mine from the psychology department. So I'm really happy to see her give this talk, and I'm really excited to learn more from what her research lab has been doing. So we'll host all questions in the chat function. So we'll do questions at the end. And if you have any in the course of the talk, feel free to put them in the chat function. In the meantime, we're going to mute all attendees except for Dr. Insera to make sure that we allow her free time to talk and free space. So I think without further ado, Dr. Insera, go ahead and take it away.
Well, thank you for the wonderful introduction. So this session is about technological innovations and use of new technology. So I'm going to focus specifically on Qualtrics, and there are so many platforms. I think in the last year we have all learned so many new platforms and so many things, but I'm going to just focus on Qualtrics because there's actually a tool that EKU has purchased the license for everyone, right? So I'm going to share a screen here for those of you at EKU. All faculty, students, and staff at EKU are able to log into Qualtrics and can use a professional account, which is really, really cool. So in this website, you can see all of the, how do you log in with your account and the EKU Qualtrics. So I think this has been a great move by the university, and then we can really use Qualtrics in many different ways. So something I want to talk about here, this presentation has two parts. The first part is going to be my own lab. So in the last year, I have a research psychology lab in person in which we collect data from people. So specifically, we use mouse tracker in which we collect we record how people move the mouse as they answer different questions and they do different tasks. So we were able to actually put this on Qualtrics, which I was blown away that this even worked. Like I did not expect, I thought this was going to be like, okay, well, this fall semester, we cannot be in the lab. Let's just go and collect some online data, see how it looks. And it actually looks great. I was very impressed that this worked. And then I've been learning more and more about Qualtrics, and it has potential to be used in many different ways. So how I've divided the session is in two pieces. The first part, I'm going to show you what I did and how surprisingly easy it was to hack Qualtrics in a way that collects how people move the mouse. And also the second half of the session, I've been thinking a lot about Qualtrics and about this idea. So I want to share with you ways in which people can use Qualtrics from administrators to researchers to teachers, different advisors, ways in which people can use this tool in new ways to help make whatever you're trying to make easier and more efficient. Okay, so let me start with my own research, what we did. So this whole endeavor started for me when I found these papers. So I'm going to show you the Open Science Framework page. So this is Maya Mathur. There is a paper, Mathur and Rachling. This is from 2019. And they wrote this paper called Qualtrics Mouse Tracking. And it is what it is like it says here, is open source software for mouse tracking on Qualtrics to measure category competition. They just did it for their task, but you can apply to any psychological research projects that you want to use. And what I was very surprised is how easy this is, because what they had, I mean, they have a bunch of things, but what really matters here is the Qualtrics template. This is all open. So the Open Science Framework is kind of like a repository. Imagine as like a Google Drive for researchers, where are open to everyone. Everyone can upload any documents there. And they have here a Qualtrics Mouse Tracker Live demo. And this is what is called a QS. So it's a .qs document, which means it's a Qualtrics survey document, right? So if you are in Qualtrics, and here you can see some of my projects, any of these projects, you can export them and to share it with other people, right? So imagine I have a survey here and I want to export it. So if I click on export, I'm going to get a QS document, kind of like this one. So what these researchers did was they created this example that you can then you can download from the Open Science Framework, this .qs file, and then you go to your own Qualtrics and you import the example survey, and then you are able to collect all of this information. And this is what blew my mind, because all you need to do once that QS document is already in your Qualtrics, all you need to do is add your own things that you want to put in. So they had their example with like faces or whatever, and I changed that to words because what I study is language, but other people can change those to whatever they want to do. And then you have like this mouse tracking experiment, psychological experiment. So I'm going to show you a little bit of how that looks from on the Qualtrics side. So on Qualtrics, I have several of these. We've been busy, but the one I want to talk about is video games and the flanker task. So these are just experimental tasks in psychology. The contents of the task itself is not as relevant, but this is just how a normal survey looks on Qualtrics. So you can see here that you start with some instructions, and we put the AKU logo because we like doing that. And then we move, these are like the traditional questions, right? So how old are you? What's your gender? What's your ethnicity, right? Like the demographic questions, like a normal survey. Now, the interesting piece for us, for the experimental piece, for the people interested in collecting mouse tracking data, is this piece down here. Well, these were the instructions, but and this is, we wanted to make sure that people had the right size screen, like they had to have it maximized. There was a couple of glitches with that, but okay, here is how it actually looks. So there is a question, you insert it as like a question on Qualtrics, and what it's doing is something is appearing here in the middle, and then you have to click left or right, right? So this is the practice. So right here, there is this loop and merge. And what this button does is, this is the only thing you have to actually edit, is this loop and merge button. And here, when you open it, you can put, this is the practice. So there's like 4 things that people look at, but you can put anything you want here. So this link is just, in our case, this link is just opening a new, if you just open it, it's just the image that you put in, that we put in there. So this is called the flanker task, in which people have to click on the right, on the left, depending on where the arrow in the middle is pointing at. But this can be anything you want, right? Like if you are a visual researcher, this can be a visual image. If you are a social perception researcher, this can be people's faces. It can be anything you want. And then the nice thing here is you can have as many trials as you want, right? So you can just keep adding these links here, and every link is an image or a video or audio, because since then I figured out how to put it in. I'm just blown away by the versatility of this tool. I guess this is the take-home message of everything I'm trying to explain here. And when you do all of these, this all works like, you know, like like an experimental presentation. Like it resembles what psychology researchers do in the lab. So if we go to the preview here, and the preview in Qualtrics is kind of nice because it shows you both the normal and then the phone version in the preview. So the first part of the survey is just normal, like the survey. But when you get here at the next part, okay, these are the instruction, make sure everything is working well. And this is the, make sure you zoom in and zoom out. Okay, so when people just click, they, you know, and this looks better in when it's not like in the preview, you have kind of like the phone and all that. But when it's just the full screen, people in this case will have to click right, and then they will have to click next to the next trial, and it shows you exactly how everything, you know, is gonna look. So what is very interesting here is that in the back end, you don't need to code anything here or do anything. But if you look at this JavaScript little corner, this is how people can add to Qualtrics. Basically, there's like a JavaScript, a GS little corner here. And do you see this where it says edit question? So with here, what it's doing is finding, it's telling how many practice images, how many real images you have, the interval, but this is all the information. This is the variables used to analyze timing. Okay, this is all the information that without you knowing or realizing or anything is gathering in the background. So is measuring the time when the page loads, the time when the page is fully loaded, the time when the first mouse move occur, the latency to the first mouse movement, the time between the image loading. So is collecting the click. So the moment at which the image appears, the moment at which participants click, the moment at which participants click the response, is collecting all of this crazy amount of information in the background, and you can access it. You can look at this information and then analyze it, which all of these, I know I probably sound excited, but all of this blew my mind. Like I did not think this was gonna work, and it worked surprisingly well. So, you know, there is a lot, and there is the X position, right? Like where is the mouse on the screen horizontally and vertically, and then the Y, and there is a bunch of other stuff that it does that you don't need to worry about. But basically, the whole thing here is just all of these in the background is collecting all this information. And if you go here to the data and analysis, when you export all these responses, you get all of this very detailed information of the mouse position, how people, so it's not just, you don't just get, in traditional surveys, you will get, imagine participants are choosing from 1 to 5, you get the response. Here, you're seeing, imagine you're showing them an image, how whatever this person looks like, and you have the rate, you can see how fast they are responding, whether they are thinking about it, whether they are stopping and then moving faster. Like you can see all of those cognitive mental processes of how they are responding to this question by doing that. So if anyone is interested in the actual results, Matthew Smith has a poster called Effects of Video Game Habits on Attentional Control, which has been fully recorded. It's a mouse movement experiment recorded fully on Qualtrics. So that is what I wanted to share in terms of my studies, that we were fully in person, and then we were able to put this on Qualtrics that I was blown away by. Now, the second part that I want to share with you are some thoughts of ideas and cool things that I have not necessarily done myself, but I've seen done, and I thought were really neat on how it could be used, how Qualtrics could be used for these things, right? So one thing that I was very impressed with when I started looking at this was the whole video. So let me show you, let me share a screen. I show you an example of my videos. I was able, video. So I was able to put video on these. So instead of the middle here being an image or an audio, this is actually a video. If I click preview, well, if you click the preview, it sounds double because the computer and the phone version both play the video, and then it sounds double. But when you play for real in the actual task, then it sounds perfectly fine. And I was able to set it up that the video, the time, the mouse time starts at the video at the time the video starts playing. So it's really cool. And the video not only can go in the stimuli or the part in the, if you're asking people to watch a video and then rate something or whatever, not only can go in the question itself, but the video can also go in the instructions, right? So I was thinking a lot of the time we have these like, consent form type instructions or welcome to my survey messages. And it can be possible to actually record yourself. Hi, welcome so much to join my survey. Please do this or that, which may actually improve some completion rates or some accuracy of instruction rates, because sometimes we know, like when you're doing an online survey, participants may not be reading every detail, but maybe a 1-minute video, they actually listen to you telling them what the instructions for your task should be. So video, I see so much potential on video. Now, the other piece is the random presentation. So what I wrote there, loop and merge, and let me share you these. This actually came from a question from a student who asked how to do this. And then I figured, oh, you can do this. So if you get here, look and merge, the look and, so if instead of creating, let's say, 5 different questions as 5 different questions on Qualtrics, you create one question that has 5 fields in it, kind of like this, or 5 subsections in it. And then you click on randomize loop order. You can present only, so you can say, select 2 of these 10 things to present to each person, or you can select 10 things out of the 10 things to present to each person, whatever you want to do. And then you want to randomize this for experimental psychologists. In many cases, this is actually, we like to, we don't like every person to always have the same order. We like everyone to receive things randomized. So that was a very cool little, you just click the randomize and then it's randomized, which I was impressed with. Oh, create adaptive surveys. This is a whole world. You can spend like hours and hours doing adaptive surveys, but let me share you one. This is actually my advising survey. So in advising, I ask, well, these are actually John questions that he shared with us. And I asked these questions to my advisees to see how they are doing things. But then as they were answering, I realized some questions may not make as much sense in that, for example, my freshmen, it may make sense to say if you have transfer credit, like the first time they meet with me. But if they've told me, if they've repeat this questionnaire, it may be boring for them to every time. It's like, no, I don't have pending credits. No, I don't have pending credits, right? Like telling me. So what I've done is I added adaptive control, which means depending on what you answer in one question, then you get a different question or you skip questions, right? So how that looks over here. So display this question. If what year you freshmen is selected, do you know how to access degree work? So basically, if they are freshmen, I ask them the question, do you know how to access this program? But if the do you know how to access degree work is a yes, then have you spent time reviewing it? So if they answer no, I don't know how to access it, then asking them whether they've spent time reviewing it makes no sense, right? So if they say yes, that they know how to access, then the next question is, have you spent time reviewing? Now, one question that I want to mention for adaptive control, this works great if your goal is to understand what a specific person is doing and get information for a specific question from a specific person. If your goal is to do a study for an experiment, you don't want probably adaptive control, because then you're going to have holes on your data, right? So if you want to compare people across a set of questions, you need to ask those set of questions to all of your participants. But if you're trying to help someone and you want to help that person get information from that specific person, then this adaptive survey is more efficient. So what I saw when I was reviewing ideas for what people were doing, someone mentioned in a forum about like a degree. It was like a nursing program in which it was kind of complicated to help students figure out what do they need to do or something. So basically they set up a Qualtrics survey. Depending on what they answer, they ask them different questions, and at the end of the survey you can create a pop-up, and at the end of the survey show, based on your questions, you should be doing this or that or whatever. And I see the applications for that immensely, right? Because we do a lot of repetitive where do you do, yeah, if you say yes, then this, like flow, anything that you can put in a flow chart, right? Like if you say yes, do this. If you say no, do that. If it's whatever, do this. If it's anything that you can put in a flow chart, you can use an adaptive survey on Qualtrics and be very, very versatile and be able to set that up really well. I was impressed with that. Oh, super important. I want to share with you as well, exporting. So if you go to the data survey options, oh, no, that's not what I meant. If you go to the data analysis, when you're going to export your data, there is a export import option here. By the way, if you have a personal account, not the professional account, it will not let you export data. We learned this the hard way. One of my students accidentally signed up with the personal instead of the EKU license account. And what happened was that she could not export the data. We had to start data collection all over again, and we lost those data sets. So make sure to always have the professional account. But if you have the professional account and you click on export data, what is going to happen is it's going to ask you if you want CSV or Excel or SPSS or Google Drive, whatever format. But then down here is use numeric values, use choice text. You need to think about it for a second because, for example, I had situations in which we have like Likert scales, right, from 1 to 5, and we wanted to analyze them on a scale of 1 to 5, like as a number, numeric variables, then export it as a number makes more sense. The problem is if you export as a number, sometimes the categorical variables like the male or female also exports it as a 0 or a 1. So if you have like a survey that you have mostly categorical variables, you probably want to export as a word, and if you have mostly continuous number variables, you probably want to export as a number. Either, or you can export it both ways and figure it out. Some variables always exports. So for example, ID, I'm pretty sure always exports as word. This is a recent feature. I saw this for the first time like a couple of weeks ago. So I'm sure they are still managing out. So maybe at some point we will be able to be like, okay, I want these 3 variables as words and these 3 variables as numbers, and to make sure everything makes sense and you export the variables in a way that you want. But this is actually very helpful because you don't have to then in the cleaning be like renaming, right? Like if you had extremely agree or extremely disagree and make them all 1s or 5s or whatever it is, now you already exported in the number or the word, whatever is easier. So I hope with Qualtrics, another advantage is that the cleaning process should be much easier because it's already collected and exported in like a tidy format, right? So that should be easier. Okay, so some other cool ideas that I thought that I don't know, that got me thinking about how the potential of this and how much you can use these tools for so many other things, right? So one thing that I read that is a purchase request form for a department, for example, in which it had all these like, if like they had like a basically internal rules of what you could purchase and if there were limits or whatever. So they had created these Qualtrics forms and you just go through that. So basically for administrators and for tasks that are well defined, I see potential of like automating this process by creating like a Qualtrics that does all of that. Another good thing that people were talking about is like maybe a single exam or survey that can be shared across people, right? So for example, if you if you're using Blackboard, imagine 3 professors across different sections want to use the same thing. On Blackboard, if you are setting it up as a Blackboard survey, you have to like export it and import it in the new cell, right? And in the new Blackboard course, or export it. If you I was muted accidentally, I think. If you have a Qualtrics, if you have it set up in Qualtrics, you can share that link with everyone, and then it will you know so it is on its own, and you don't have to copy paste it or do anything. Everyone can just share that link everywhere. So this is not limited to Qualtrics. This is also Google Forms and SurveyMonkey and any other survey program does that. But I think there is something helpful about having a system where this one thing can be set up, and then everyone can share the link, and then all the responses will go to decentralized. So if we were to add, imagine in a department, we're interested in across all our classes, ask something to our students, you can put it on Qualtrics, everyone shares the link, and you just have to add a column about which class are you, and then it will be easy to do. Those are some of the things people were talking about. And then, oh, and something really helpful that I found really interesting, and I'm wrapping things up here, but something was the end of the survey. So the end of the survey has a lot of potential. So let me show you how this looks. So when you are on the survey, there is this piece of survey options, and within survey options, at the end, you can do a custom end of the survey message. So this one right here, the appointment one, is a link to my slate, right? Because I ask the students to sign up for their own advising appointments through a slate. So they take the Qualtrics, and then when they finish answering the survey, it automatically points them to the link. It can be Calendly or whatever system you use to sign up your advisees with, but it redirects them there, which I found really helpful. And then for my studies that I'm running through SONA, so for those of you who may not know what SONA is, in the psychology department, we have a research granting credit system in which students sign up to get research credit. So you can link the survey at the end, so that redirect link at the end, the final message on the Qualtrics surveys will send them back to SONA, and then SONA automatically imports the ID. So for example, if you have like 200 participants in your survey, it will be really tedious to type give credit, give credit, give credit, give credit 200 times. The moment they finish, they have to finish, because if they don't finish the survey, it doesn't the link doesn't pop up, and it doesn't send them back to SONA. But once they finish, it does that, and then they get the credit automatically on SONA. So some of those are the things that I did not know, and I was like, wow, this is really time saving to do all of these things in a more efficient way, right? So going back to the idea of research, if you think about Qualtrics, I found that data collection, right? You get, instead of just your few in-person undergraduates, with data collection, with a Qualtrics, you can send that link to Mechanical Turk or to the whole population. You can share it on social media. So samples are diverse. You get a lot more diverse samples. There's this joke in psychology that psychology was the science of rats and undergraduate students of psychology, right? Because those were like our convenient samples, because those were like 90% of our studies. Well, with these type of systems, you can still get full-on experiments, but now everyone on their own thinking do it. Now, there is some caveats, and I could probably do a whole session on the caveats, right? Because the screens people are using are different, the mouse the people are using are different. So there is also some, issues going on, some variability going on there. But I think overall, this is an impressive tool that you can use. So I think it's a quick and efficient way to collect data. The data that you collect stays organized and structured, and you export it in a very neat and tidy way. And and it can has applications for research, but also for advising, for teaching, like exams or surveys or many different things, or for administration, or for making processes more efficient in departments and communities. So that is all I had. But my question for the group is, what do you like? What do you think you can use Qualtrics for? Do you see potential to use this tool in different ways that will benefit, that will make your job easier, that will help you, either in research or teaching or surveys, make things better for you?
So I believe most people are muted because of just the way that we've set it up, but you can put your answers in the chat function and think about how you'd like to use Qualtrics. I personally use SurveyMonkey for all sorts of things. I was sold on the whole idea of mTurk, and I was able to do a lot of really cool research on that. And so I was able to sort of translate what I was doing on SurveyMonkey into Qualtrics, but thankfully, having a trailblazer like Sarah in the department, I can see, oh, I can do social cognitive stuff now, and I can get into more experimental and less survey stuff. So
yeah, and it measures like errors and reaction times and the mouse and the area and the whole thing. Like, I was just blown away that it actually does all of that. I was just very impressed.
So Javier said that he also used SurveyMonkey, and that Qualtrics is very foreign until recently. I think a lot of it does translate fairly well, but yeah, I mean, the options are really way more. Renee said, I have used Qualtrics for survey studies, class activities, measuring program outcomes, such as education on critical reading and measuring student learning of the content for program outcomes, feedback following conferences, and a lot of other uses as well. I prefer Qualtrics to REDCap, Google Forms, and SurveyMonkey. So obviously a good thing that we have that license and we're using it a lot at EKU. And I think it's really nice that students can do that too. Just do the EKU version, students, if you're watching this, if you didn't hear that warning. Unless you like doing things like all over again, which no one likes doing, then definitely do the professional version. I thought what you were talking about with the using it for advising, I mean, that has so many possibilities for having all advisees take that and provide links to resources, the kinds of things that I do in emails, on a case-by-case basis, that we could have, do you need help with this? Do you need help figuring out what career you're going to go into? And if they say yes, it would link them to, the appointment page at the Office of Academic and Career Services. And just, there's so many ways we could do that. And I'm definitely, I think we should steal that idea. Like, take that sort of list of questions that's going on Qualtrics, send it to all the advisees. And then the ones who have questions would be able to set up the appointment.
I've been thinking a lot about that. And one thing I want to mention that I've been going back and forth is, so right now I have some open-ended questions and they tell me, and then it helps me prepare. So when I meet with them, I know what to talk about. I am afraid of the going the other way. So if it's too automated and you don't have a person, then you may miss some of the pieces. So you like, it's kind of like when you call and it's a fully automatic person. It's like, no, none of the options work for me. Just please give me a person that I can talk to. So I wonder if we need to be careful. So it can be maybe an ad, like, look at all of these things, and in addition, come with your advisor with questions about all of these things, or something in which we are careful, because there is a trouble of too automated. You may miss the personal connection as well.
Right. So Renee had a question. Can you get some of the visual representations of data from Qualtrics like you can Google Forms and REDCap? That is one limitation I've noticed, or maybe I just have not figured out how to download any available graphs and charts. I make charts in outside programs currently to represent my data.
Yes, I agree. Well, I teach data visualization. So for me, this is an advantage instead of a drawback because my personal take on the graphs that are already on Google Drive and Google Form or Microsoft Forms right now are like so bad, and we can have a whole session on how pie charts are not good to represent things. But it's true in Microsoft, in Google Forms and Microsoft Forms, both of those generate pie charts and bar graphs automatically, and it gives you an initial view of it. I have not seen that in Qualtrics. In Qualtrics, you need to definitely export, as far as I know. I don't know if anyone here has seen that, but so I see it as an advantage because then the bad graphs don't show up, but I can see how people who just quickly skim through those graphs to get a sense may miss those.
We have a comment from our YouTube group from Jamie. Yes, I've used Qualtrics for a needs assessment survey with a lot of conditional questions, for doctoral research with Likert scale, and for short program evaluations. And Renee responded saying, very true, some of the pre-made graphs are not great. And I think every professor has their, like, you know, please don't do these things, and yours is pie charts. Like, please don't do pie charts. Like, don't talk about pie charts with Sarah ever.
Well, this is actually Alex Barakin, our visual person who has like a paper on this and the whole, this is from the R user group. The R user group had a whole session on how pie charts, donut graphs. So donut graphs is like a pie chart, but just the outer circle apparently are better. And this is, Alex was telling us all about how visually angles are really hard to process, so at least the donut chart doesn't have the angles in the middle, and I don't know, there's a whole visual perception of data research on it.
So a lot of us have sort of answered your question. What questions do the attendees have? Again, you can just write them into the chat function and I will read them off, and we'll see what you have to say. So what questions did you have? And while they're thinking, I had a question about the mouse tracking data. So when you download the data, how do you get the mouse tracking data to export to, say, an Excel file? Because it seems like that's available, but maybe not automatically part of that export unless you ask for it somehow, or do you have to go in and actually kind of pick it out of there?
Yeah, so that actually is a little bit more tricky. So when you have the Mother and Raisley, what they did was they created an R script to do this. So when you export your data, you run this script and it's already pre-made. Now I had to tweak a few things. So for example, the example had like 20 trials and my example had 40 trials. So I had to go and change whatever said 20, I had to make 40. And there was a couple other things. Their example had no right or wrong. It was all just like a Likert scale. And my example for the flanker task, I had right or wrong. So I have to go and say, if it's here is right, if it's here. So all of that was done on an R script. That requires some coding. So that requires a little bit of, you need to open the R script. So I didn't write the script, like it was, I downloaded the script, but because whatever you need to change, you kind of have to keep, this was specifically hard for the students. So whatever they change, I was like, for everything you change, just keep a list. I made the practice trials were 4 and now they are 8. The normal trials were 8 and now they are 20, and then whatever, every change you make, because you're going to have to make the corresponding change on the script. Now with that script, it was really easy to get the reaction times, the area under the curve. So the area under the curve is if there is a straight line to the correct response, how much people deviate, so how much curve you have, that's the area under the curve. Those overall measures were really easy. Now the actual drawing of the trajectory, that one, you can do it, but it was a little bit trickier. And the reason is the screen. So when we look at the screen, like something like 85% of people had what was deemed by the program weird screen proportions, like either taller or wider. So you can do it and it averages out. And I got results like in the flanker task, the incongruent condition was worse and the other was straighter. So you do get the results. It's just in that sense, because the screen size is different, it was a little bit more, it was less precise than my in-lab in person. So I guess I will still consider, in terms of the quality of the experimental data, kind of an in between the actual lab results where everyone has the same screen and and some of this may be solved with normalization, where if you change the ratio of things, but you have to do that manually and after the fact. So there is some quirks there to fix, if that makes sense.
Well, I'll let some people let their questions cook a little bit longer. I have another question for you, and this is mostly for the sake of our students who would be watching this. A good number of our students were born in the 21st century, which is very hard for me to say, like to actually come to grips with that reality. Born in the 21st century. So give our students an idea of how much of these things you've been talking about were available in the 20th century. How much of this is 21st century innovation?
None. And not only like there, but like it wasn't even available 5 years ago. So when I started, I started my doctoral program in 2012. And in 2012, we looked at the possibility. So we were using the program Mouse Tracker, and we used the possibility of setting up something like that online. And the reason for me was I was trying to collect data from bilingual speakers. And the more you can do online, the better, because I had bilingual friends like in Europe and in every places, but I didn't have them all where I was doing my work. And it was so complex. Like there were like, you basically needed like a computer science degree to be able to even understand what you need to do with these everything. And this is not the only one. There is also there are a lot of programs that have been like Open Sesame and other programs. There's so many programs that have been set up online. And with COVID, of course, all of this has just like gone crazy. But none of these was available even 5 years ago. Like mouse tracking started 10 years ago. The program, like research on mouse tracker is from, I think the original paper is 2010. And then the online version of mouse tracking started like last year,
And there's eye tracking too, which was that's 21st century too, right?
100%. And now for the first time, I've been seeing some people that are trying to do eye tracking online through the camera. So they are trying to get people's laptops cameras to do eye tracking. Now, I have no idea about the reliability of the actual data you can get there, but there is definitely people looking into that and making it better and better, which the flip side of things is it gets really scary how much data people can collect from you without you not even going anywhere, right? Like there's the other side of things, but in the hands of researchers who are trying to make these ethical decisions, that is impressive.
Right. And that's where your consent statement is like, I promise I'm not spying on you any other time, right? So Renee has a question. I wonder if it is possible to add videos that might represent driving scenarios and assess response time or other factors which could relate to driver safety within Qualtrics. These are things some occupational therapists would typically do in person, but during COVID, needing to shift more online for some of those driver safety assessments.
So for that, I think an even better tool will be, so our colleague, Alex Barakin, he's doing virtual reality and he has it set up and now that is a little bit more coding. At that point, you're basically coding the virtual reality scenario, right? Like we had like a trial run on his lab and he was showing us how, like at first he had like this humongous table that was like above you, and then he figured out how to code it so it's like an actual table so you can like hit things and see things. And so yeah, I will say talk to Alex Barakin. It's possible. I will not. So if you just want the video, for sure, what I did, you can get reaction times and are under the curve. fine. Now the more the actual mouse trajectory, not so sure, but the area under the curve and reaction times and errors, that was very straightforward. And you can present the video. So that's the example that I had that is working with videos. I have like accented the speakers, and they, you show the video and then you click, and that works. So for that worked. Now if you want actually the immersion is possible, it's just for that, what Alex is doing, he has the virtual reality set, and and then you have to code it.
I'm wondering if some of those videos that are shown in person already exist, that you'd be able to put up the videos, and then whatever assessments you're asking them in that in person, if that somehow could be infused in that too. So I don't know. I mean, it sounds like Qualtrics can do quite a bit if you just play around with some of the scripts and check out some forums and whatnot. And it definitely has a lot more than I would have assumed. I certainly wouldn't have assumed that decent experiments could be done on Qualtrics, and maybe but it sounds like it's pretty open to whatever.
Yeah, I had not assumed I did not think this was going to work, and it did. So I was on your boat too. The other idea that I had, so Michael Chen, what he is doing in our department as well, what he had was the opposite approach. So he has his eye tracker is not a virtual reality, it's an actual eye tracker, but the mobile one, like glass, I don't know exactly what it is, but like glasses. So what he's doing is he's setting up real rooms, right? Real scenarios, real situations. And he's measuring how people interact in real situations by looking at what they are looking at, but there is no screen or, so, Alex's approach is you are getting into the virtual reality that we have designed. Michael's approach is, this is the real world, go interact with it, and I'm measuring where you're looking at. So that's another option that maybe for OT may be helpful.
Yeah. And all the people that you've mentioned, I should just say, are all EKU cognitive psychology professors. So all different approaches, all at EKU, all in the psychology department, all in the field of cognitive psychology. So
yeah, I know these things because we had a brain and cognition group going, and this is what we were doing, trying to figure out how to set all these things up.
Yeah, really cool. So is this going to change, since you figured out all this stuff, is this going to change how you do your lab, even when we open back up?
Absolutely. So the first thing I want to do is same study both ways, because right now I haven't done that. I have done the one way and the other way. So the first thing, just for me, for my internal, how is this different or not? I would like to do the same study both ways, to just whatever study I do, but both ways, to kind of really see if it's the same. Because my impression right now, based on my previous analysis of other data sets, is that it's looking really good and all the results are as predicted, but I haven't done the close comparison. Another thing that I've been looking at, there has been like an explosion of programs. So I really like Qualtrics, the fact that EKU is already, because the advantage of having the EKU Qualtrics is that all the data is already hosted at EKU server. So you don't have to deal with any of those IRB issues like, where is this data going? Is it a third-party lab program or whatever? But there are some open source ones that are also looking promising. So I haven't, I think Qualtrics is doing great, but I don't know if there's going to be another program that is going to take over in terms of psychological research or something. So I'm definitely looking for options, and I already have ideas of a specific projects, as like what I was saying about before, like maybe, with bilinguals or with a study abroad students, I could actually send them the link while they are studying abroad and then do the task abroad. And then I don't have no longer to make them come to my lab. So there is certain areas in which I for sure would like to do that. And then I have other projects which are much more about nitty-gritty control, where I care so much more about the experimental control, which I will like, okay, maybe this other one, that very control one, that may be better in the kids building,
Yeah. That sounds like the external versus internal validity sort of trade-off. You'll be able to cover it no matter what. But I love the fact that we can collect data from samples abroad, whether it's our students abroad or individuals who we would never ever get a chance to have in our samples. Now we can find out what's going on and really make psychology less of the not just undergraduate students, but American undergraduate students a lot of the time. Try to expand our cross-cultural reach a little bit more.
Yeah, I can imagine this is going to be brutal for that, because now, so in the past, even if you were sharing experiment, like, so this happened to be with my collaborators in Spain, where I will design the experiment, then I will email it to them or share in a Google Drive or whatever. They will have to download it, make sure it works on theirs. And there's always things that change a little, right? Like, I don't know, like things that maybe couldn't work the same. Now we can create the same thing that applies to the same exam across different faculty, now applies across different countries. One person sets up the Qualtrics, sends all their collaborators in the world the link, and now everyone in everywhere is doing the exact same thing, going the data to the exact same place. So I imagine for cross-cultural psychology and for international studies that this can really help. Now, there's still some things that person has to have the screen, that has to have the, if it's video, it has to be the resolution. There is some technological pieces, but I see a lot of potential.
Yeah, it almost suggests a good international collaborative collective that needs to start sharing this stuff and saying, all right, let's just, whatever everyone's doing, we're all just going to do that. And every study we'll do will have sort of this, as close as possible, global sample.
So there is the many labs. So there is the psychology accelerator, and then there is the many labs, and the many labs had the many baby labs, and there is at least a couple of projects, and those are those massive, this is all in the Open Science Framework as well, which the list of co-authors is like, I don't know, 57 people, right? Because it's everyone who collected data for the study, and they have like, and they are starting to write up some how to do these things, because you can imagine coordinating like 50 researchers across whatever many countries and languages, and most of this is happening in English, but some of those were super interesting.
Other questions from our attendees today? Well, I really appreciate you sharing so much knowledge with us. I think this feels like a workshop. I feel like I got a whole bunch of notes, and I'm just like, wow, I can do so much more stuff. So I feel very enlightened and inspired and ready to go. I got lots of ideas from your talk. So thank you so much for sharing your expertise and your experience, and just your tips for making things better.
Thank you for having me. And if anyone has questions, I'm happy to help out with, or send you to my students, because data initiatives at the Knowledge Studio, I have several students that are now very knowledgeable in Qualtrics. So I'm very happy to, if you want a consultation or, we are happy to help with Qualtrics or with anything you may want to set up that way.
And you can check out Matthew Smith's poster at the University Presentation Showcase Undergraduate Poster Gallery. That's my little pitch for that. So check that out this week. Thank you.